Y'all get settled in, and there's a packet of materials on your desk. If you want to start looking over it, it'll give you an idea of what's going to happen today. We need the officers of the House. That's the Speaker, Speaker Pro Tem, Chief Clerk, Sergeant at Arms, Parliamentarian, Chaplain, Reading Clerk. Come down here and report to the Chief Clerk. Did you find, where is he? Okay, good. Okay, we need the Speaker of the House to start off with. I'm going to start calling off names. If I do, y'all come on down here. Zion Sane, Speaker. Adam Hagler, I think Mr. Gates has already got him. Okay, good, thank you. Jared Matson, Aaron Mann, Max Sutton, Jared Turner, Logan Meyer, Cole Irwin, Daryl Wilson, Damon Johnson, Xavier Childs, Trellian Williams, you're all right. Jared Wilson.
Daryl Wilson. Right.
Daryl
okay.
Wilson.
With me.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay.
I just take the seat. If I was appointed to a messenger of the House, sir.
Okay. So you're Connor Carpenter?
Yes.
Okay. Get with okay.
Okay, you need to be a messenger to the House. Are you in the Senate? Okay, messenger to the House. You will usually be down in the Senate because we have a messenger to the Senate.
Thank you. Just grab
Go
it.
down there, okay?
Yeah.
Messenger to the House, so I sent him to the Senate. He was a messenger to the House, so I sent him to the Senate. Hopefully that's where he belongs.
Okay. Gentlemen, we're going to get started here in just a few minutes. While we're waiting, there's a packet of materials on your desk. If you would look over it, I think it'll give you an idea about what we're going to be doing here this morning. Gentlemen, y'all come on in and have a seat. We're waiting, looking for the Speaker of the House. Zion Sane, Adam Hagler's already here. Jared Matson, Aaron Mann, Max Sutton, Jared Turner, Logan Meyer, Cole Irwin, Daryl Wilson. Daryl's already here. Damon Johnson, Xavier Childs, and Trellian Williams.
Do you need these Adam down here too, or just need in the room? Pardon? Do you need Adam down here, or in the seat?
No, he needs.
Adam?
He's going to be sitting up there. We have an extra desk chair up there. Okay, here
Where do you need to go right now?
up there. I'm Buddy Johnson. Nice to meet you. Why don't you go?
He's our parliamentarian.
Yeah, going up there. There's the Speaker will be in the middle chair. If you would sit in the chair on that side. Y'all come on in.
I think your governor just.
We're looking for the.
There he is.
You the Speaker? Buddy Johnson. Nice to meet you. If you would go up there and sit in that middle chair, I'll help you get comfortable and everything.
I think maybe some of your people just got here.
Okay, Jared Matson, Aaron Mann, Max Sutton, Jared Turner, Logan Meyer, Cole Irwin.
It's your parliamentarian. Buddy, here's your parliamentarian.
Okay.
Okay, Jared,
If you'd go up to
your
the chair.
chaplain.
On that side. I'll be
You'll
up there
come
in a
around,
minute.
Jared, if you'll come around here. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Jared Turner. Oh, I'm sorry.
Jared Turner. All right, Jared.
Sorry, I didn't realize there was two here. Aaron Mann, Sergeant at Arms.
You
Okay.
are
You'll go Emily.
Cole Irwin. Get with our chief clerk.
You're Sergeant at Arms. If you'll go over here with
Mr. Williams. Okay, you're with
Williams.
her.
Okay. You need to go here with Emily. You'll need to go here. We have Logan Mayer. So reading clerk.
We're missing Logan Meyer. Logan Meyer. Logan Meyer.
Does anyone know Logan Meyer? Does anyone have Logan Meyer's phone number? Does he exist? How do you know him? Okay, do you have his phone number?
Okay. We understand Logan is here somewhere. Logan Meyer. Looking for Logan Meyer.
Number?
Dan, where's Barrett? Well, I'll tell you what. We're waiting Logan Meyer. Okay. We're waiting one more officer of the House. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and get started because our time is limited today. I'm Buddy Johnson. I'm parliamentarian for the House of Representatives. I want to welcome you to the House Chamber. This is a very special place. It's been used since 1911 for lawmaking in Arkansas, and aren't very many people have the opportunity to come onto the floor to participate in something like this as you are doing today. Before we get started, I want everybody to take a deep breath and look up at the ceiling, because there's not many other cooler ceilings anywhere than what we have here. So make the most of it. Once we get started, during the proceedings, to be recognized to participate, the recognition will come from the Speaker of the House, Zion Sain. And when we get started, he'll be doing that. He'll be calling on you according to the name on your desk. So become familiar with that. When he does call on you, that's the name he'll be using. So for the purposes of what we're doing in here today, for instance, you're Mr. Shepard, you're Mr. Hendren, you're Mr. Whitaker, etc. If you wish to be recognized, just like in your school classroom, you raise your hand. Usually you hold up your microphone. That tells the speaker or the parliamentarian that you would like to be recognized. If during debate, if you want to speak for a bill, if you could just indicate to the speaker or the parliamentarian that you want to speak for the bill, give a thumbs up. If you want to speak against the bill, thumbs down. If you want to make a motion or something, just get their attention and just make eye contact. A lot of communication is done out here just through eye contact and hand signals. If you're recognized during debate, if you want to speak for or against the bill, you will come to this spot in the chamber. This is called the well of the House. You don't debate from your desks. You can ask questions from your desk, and you can make motions from your desk. But during debate, to speak for or against the bill, you'll come down here. If someone is down here speaking, the speaker can't and won't accept motions made from the floor, because the person down here literally has the floor. During debate, if you ask to be recognized, please don't hit the microphones. There aren't switches on these microphones. They're all activated by our sound clerk, Mr. Garrett Wilkins, up here. And he activates the microphones once you're recognized by the speaker. And so if you would just be patient, the microphone will come on eventually and you don't need to bang on it. When you're using the voting machine, there's a voting machine or buttons at each desk. The green button means yes. Red button means no, yellow button means present, white button means request to speak, and we don't use that button in here. So you can punch it all you want, but nothing will happen. And we also ask that delegates not have any food or drink on the floor. So if you have water or something, if you just tuck it away, that'd be great. We were very protective of of this chamber and of the desks in it. So at this time, again, welcome to the House Chamber, and I'd like to turn over to the chair of the Boise State Delegation, Representative Tim Lemons.
Well, welcome to Boise State, and thank you for participating in this remarkable journey that you're on. I, too, was on this journey back in 1979. Way too many years ago, but I never knew when I was in Boise State that I would end up in the House of Representatives. So chase your dreams. That's what this is all about. I'd like to recognize some of our House members that have been helping with Boise State this week. We have our Vice Chair, Mr. James Sturch. Representative Steve Hollowell in the back. Representative Austin McCullum, Representative Stephen Meeks, who I would like to point out is number 1 in seniority in this House. So he's number 1. The most righteous and honorable ex-county judge, State Representative Mark McElroy. Representative Andy Davis, Representative Monty Hodges, Representative Mickey Gates, Representative Rick Beck, Representative Aaron Pilkington, Representative Les Warren, and just joining us just a few moments ago, the most wonderful Representative Carlton Wing. As the parliamentarian spoke just a moment ago, you are somewhat on what we would call sacred ground. Please understand that to be here, to be in Boise State is a privilege, but to be in this chamber is also a privilege. The only people that are allowed on this floor are the representatives, the staff, and pages. Every 2 years when we get sworn in, we're allowed to bring 1 family member onto this floor. Besides that, no one else is allowed within this room. So this is a privilege. So as Buddy said, make sure you get a good picture of the fixture up top, because very few people get to see it from this angle. And looking out at this crowd and being in your committee meetings yesterday, Arkansas's future looks very bright. You are the cream of the crop, and we're really excited about our future, just seeing what we saw yesterday. And one last question, is there anybody here from Cabot? From Cabot? Outstanding. Get with me before you leave today, please. That's where I represent. I want to get a picture with you. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Parliamentarian.
Will the House come to order? I invite the members, staff, press, and guests in the galleries to stand and be led in the prayer by the House Chaplain, Jared Turner, and to remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Representative Christian Bokutz.
Bow your heads and close your eyes. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for letting us come here and we'll get a great opportunity for all of us in this room. Give us strength, give us guidance, help us, lead us in the right direction, and I hope that we can be better citizens as we get older. Lord, in Jesus' name pray, amen.
Members, please indicate your presence by pushing your yellow present button. Prepare the machine, Mr. Clerk.
So hit attendance. Oh, hit yes. No. They're once they get everyone voted in, we're gonna hit close vote, and then it's gonna print out right here. Yep. There you go. And then so you're gonna be reading. We're still waiting on Murdoch. Yeah. Murdoch.
Cast up the ballot, Mr. Clerk. With the 100 members present, the chair sees a quorum. The chair appoints the following committee to notify the Senate that the House is organized and ready for business: Chapman Campbell, Hayden Couch, and Will Dean. The chair appoints the following committee to notify the governor that the House is organized and ready for business: Sullivan Solhurst, Tate Hill, and Marcus Pillow. If the committee will please deliver those messages. Thank you.
Members, we're going to pass over House Bill 1001.
Okay, is that it?
And we're going to pass over House Bill 1001.
Without objection, we're going to pass over the bill 1001.
Okay.
Mr. Clerk, please read
Yes, House Bill 1002.
House Bill 1002.
It's been 1002, and then read.
House Bill 1002, Smart Weed Act of 2017.
Representative Campbell, you are recognized to explain the bill.
Good morning, gentlemen. The Smart Weed Act of 2017 is made to implement a sales tax on the sale of medical marijuana. Currently, Arkansas has no funding. Well, it costs $3 million a year to fund and regulate the sale of medical marijuana because it's an entirely new industry that we didn't really account for. So that's $3 million that the state's losing every year. To make up this, we're trying to implement a 2.9% sales tax on the sale of medical marijuana. This includes sale from the cultivator to the distributor, and then from the distributor to the consumer. And so the first $3 million of that will be used to cover the funding of regulating the medical marijuana industry. And then the rest of that will be given back to funding for important things in the state. So the remainder shall be distributed as follows: 60% to the Department of Education to be used for kindergarten through grade 12 education, 30% to drug prevention programs in education, and 10% to a fund for disaster relief. And we know that disaster relief is important, as we've seen some of the flooding in Northeast Arkansas. So the Smart Weed Act really has no drawbacks. It'd be great for the state, and it would help to cover the costs of this new industry, and it would give back to the people.
Representative Campbell has explained the bill. Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Sturge, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Guys, I just kind of want to show you how this is done in the process. So after a speaker presents his bill, you will have an opportunity to come down here and either speak for or against the bill. As long as he was in the well, you could have asked a question of him. And so I'm using this opportunity to bring up a point that I did not see in House Bill 1002. I applaud Representative Campbell's efforts. I applaud his division of the funds, but I would also like to see money diverted to our road program, because as you know, roads in this state are at a critical time, and we need money diverted to them when we're already giving almost 60 cents out of every dollar to public education and higher education. I'd like to see some of this money to the road. So I'd ask you to please consider that when you're voting on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Would anybody like to speak for the bill? Representative Whitaker? For what purpose? You are recognized.
Although the roads are in bad condition, as you said, public education is a big part of the future of Arkansas, and this money should be used to further education so that more solutions and more problems can be fixed. Coming from a small school, I can see that public education is underfunded, and there is major improvements that could be made. Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Rushing, you are recognized. Please speak against the bill. Please admit the delegation from the Senate.
Yes.
You are recognized.
Senate, where each member is recognized as, the Senate, where each member approximately represents 90,000 citizens, as opposed to you guys representing 30,000, is ready for business. So let's put that out there.
Ready to get started?
Okay. Representative Rushing, you are recognized to speak.
Against the bill?
Yes, he is against the bill.
Though this bill does have a lot of potential, I think that it should go towards the roads, but also we've seen how drugs can affect families, and not just families, but individuals on that level. So I think that should somehow fund towards not only the education, but the rehabilitation of those who have been previously addicted to drugs like that of marijuana.
Representative Hendren, for what purpose?
Say he's left the well.
He has left the well. Would anybody like to speak for the bill? Representative Jett, you are recognized to speak for the bill.
I do agree with the allocation of funding to public schools because we all know how underfunded rural schools are, and the teachers of the state are completely underpaid. So I do believe that even though we do send a whole lot of money to public education, that is the most important part of the bill, public education.
Would anybody like to speak against the bill? For the bill? Representative Dela Russo, you are recognized to speak for the bill.
I believe that the 30% that goes towards drug prevention programs would be enough. I don't think that the rehab programs are necessary in this situation because it is something that's been voted on and approved by the state and gone through a process so that it has been recognized as safe and allowed for medical use. Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Tosh, you are recognized to speak against the bill. Representative, if you would like to speak against or for the bill, please stand so you can be recognized.
I would like to make the case against the bill that there should be more funding for the drug prevention because it's not just preventing marijuana use, it'd be going for opium and heroin, cocaine and all that. And so I think those drugs, they do need rehabilitation, so I think maybe instead of 30%, increase it to 40% of the bill's funding to go to drug rehabilitation and prevention.
Representative Birchie has left well. For the bill? Against, so Representative Ballinger, for what purpose?
Question about the use of the 40% on the drug prevention program. Where would that money come from?
There's no one in the well, so no one can answer the question.
All right.
Representative Campbell, would you like to close for your bill?
So the Smart Weed Act of 2017, it seems that everybody's on board with spending money to cut the deficit that we have on the regulation of medical marijuana because we're losing $3 million every year that we don't tax the industry. It just seems that people are disagreeing on what we should spend the remainder on, but I promise that the programs we've chosen to invest in with the remainder of the money will benefit the people of Arkansas, and they are good for the citizens. This bill could bring a lot of good things to Arkansas. It could bring, because not only would it help with education, it also help to prevent drug abuse. It also help to prevent natural disaster, or to help natural disaster relief. So I would encourage each and every one of you to vote for the bill.
Representative Gray, for what purpose? Use your microphone.
All right. As you just said that
you're recognized.
Thank you. As you just said that 60% of the tax will go to the Department of Education, and I just wanted to know what in particular would it be used for through our public school system.
It'd just be used to go to the public schools, and the Department of Education could use it from there, however they see fit.
Representative Wardlaw, for what purpose?
I would just like to, well, good morning, everybody. I'd just like to know.
For what purpose?
Is the, question.
You're recognized.
Okay. So the remainder of the money is spent based on importance or personal choice?
Oh, excuse me?
Is the, like the remainder in the proceeds, is it based on personal choice or importance? Based on the schools, the drug prevention programs, and the flood, is it based on importance or personal choice?
Well, I guess it's based on a little of both. All of us are high school students, so I guess the problems that we see the most of would be problems with education. So that played a factor in allocating the funds. I'm from Northeast Arkansas, so I've seen some of the flooding, so that played a part in choosing to send some funding there. And the drug abuse, I figure if we're having a law that involves drugs, we should also be having a law that helps to prevent drug abuse.
Representative Speaks, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
How will we know that this money goes towards the public school programs and it's not spent on other things through the Department of Education?
Well, the Department of Education spends money on public schools, so we'd expect them to spend them on public schools. I hope we could trust the Department of Education.
Representative Gates, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
Why a 2.9% tax? Why not any higher? Why not any lower?
Well, when drafting this bill, we looked at what other states who have medical marijuana laws have done, and Colorado, who's most well known for their medical marijuana laws, they have a 2.9% sales tax, and it has only been beneficial to the state. So we figured we would emulate their success in that.
Representative Miller, for what purpose?
Question.
Oh, my bad. You are recognized.
Will this marijuana be grown inside of Arkansas or will it be imported?
So the tax on the cultivators' sale to the distributors, that comes from the 5 cultivating facilities that we will allow in Arkansas with the recent medical marijuana bill. And along with the 5 cultivators, there are, I believe, 32 distributors across the state. Those will be all the questions.
Representative Campbell has closed for the bill. The question before the House is the passage of House Bill 1002. Prepare the machine, Mr. Clerk. Has everybody voted? Has everybody voted? Cast up the ballot, Mr. Clerk. By vote of 71 yeas, 26 nays, and 0 presents, the bill is passed. Members, we do not usually clap when there's a passage or failure of a bill. Clerk, please read House Bill 1003.
House Bill 1003.
House Bill 1003, to create a state and local road partnership by dedicating the sales tax revenue created from the sale of certain auto-related goods to the state aid program, by Representatives H. Wilson, W. Schwartz, E. Doherty, by Senators H. Harrison and C. Brown.
Representative Wilson, you are recognized to explain the bill.
This bill is designed to help improve the roads in rural areas that tend to be neglected, and just help to maintain them in the future. The chief fiscal officer of the state shall certify to the treasurer of state each month the amount of available net general revenues for the immediately preceding month that are attributable to the collection of sales taxes derived from auto-related sales, including without limitation to all parts placed on or used by a motor vehicle. The treasurer of the state shall deposit the amount of net general revenues certified each month under subdivision B1 of this section into a fund to be used for the state aid program with an emphasis on connecting vital infrastructures between population centers. Questions, I guess.
Representative speaks. For what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
Most of the roads in rural areas are maintained by the county and city. How would we know that the money is going to be used towards the roads instead of being used towards a county jail or other purposes?
There will be a committee appointed for the purpose of making sure that all the funds are spent correctly within the counties, and to ensure that not only are the funds spent the way they're supposed to be spent, but also to minimize the cost to the state, as that will maximize the amount of money that the county is spending that they already had.
Representative Gates, for what purpose? You are recognized.
You spoke of a committee. Who would be on that committee? Who would consist of being on the committee? Where would they come from?
Well, the way I would think of it is that the committee would be composed of representatives and senators that mainly represent either rural areas or the areas where the money is going. Like, for example, if there was some rural district, the representatives for that district that are the representatives whose district would have the county within it, they would be definitely on the county or on the committee to ensure that the funds are well spent.
Representative Jett, for what purpose? You are recognized.
The bill does not specify what the tax is. What percentage would the tax be?
The tax it's an existing tax that's already on all automobiles and automobile parts. And what we would be doing is taking the existing tax and redirecting it to the roads as opposed to the general fund that we've had it for already.
Representative Davis, for what purpose? You are recognized.
Do you know exactly where you're taking these funds from?
From just the general fund, which encompasses many different things such as education and general maintenance and things like that.
Representative Nix, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
What is the expected amount of revenue that this tax will bring in?
Well, we're not quite sure yet. That's all going to depend on just the sales of automobiles and automobile parts as far as the tax itself is concerned. But in the future, after the improvement of the roads from the tax, we would expect that it would bring in more revenue through transportation of goods and such because of the shipping of trucks and all that would be easier.
Representative Ballinger, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
So would the tax money be given back to the county where the purchase was made, or would it come back to the state and the state divide it up to each county?
It would be divided up the way that the existing gas tax is divided, which is 15% of it goes to the city, 15% of it goes to the county, and 70% of it goes to the state.
Representative Lundstrom, for what purpose? You are recognized.
Okay, so do you know how much the existing tax already is?
I do not.
Representative Wardlaw, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
Could you give a general estimate on how long construction will take?
Well, it all, of course, depends on the road that is being repaired and the severity of the damage to said road, but the average should be anywhere from about 4 days to a week.
Representative De La Rosa, for what purpose?
Ask a question.
You are recognized.
I was wondering what you would use to determine what is an auto-related good. Would that have to do with motorcycles and mopeds as well? And also, would that have to do with things like air filters and like oils? Or would it only have to do with like parts?
Of course, it would, like you said, have to do with parts for automobiles, mopeds, motorcycles, just about anything that would be street legal and traveling on the road. But that it would include things such as oil and all that because there's already a gas tax which goes to the roads, even though sometimes people get gas and it's not for their car.
Representative Gray, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
What would be the process in which roads are chosen to get aid from this tax?
Well, the roads the goal is to, now obviously we can't fix all the back roads in Arkansas because there's too many of them, but the goal would be to get a majority of the moderately traveled rural roads that tend to fall into decay would be to be fixed and taken care of. But what we would do is most likely take complaints from citizens, and whichever ones are reported to be the most severe, we will look at, and if it is determined that they require a large amount of upkeep, they will be taken care of first. And then it will just go from there, from the most destroyed to the least.
Representative Gazaway, for what purpose?
Question, Mr. Speaker.
You are recognized.
Just to be clear, this bill is focused on rural roads.
Yes, the focus is, it is concentrated more on rural roads because those are the ones that tend to fall into the most disarray because of the lack of upkeep on them due to the fact that they're not extremely widely traveled, but traveled just enough to where they get worn down. But any road that lacks consistent upkeep and is in need of massive repair would be open to the funding from this bill. There will be no more questions.
Representative Wilson has explained the bill. Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Rushing, you are recognized.
Within this bill, it takes the money out of the general fund. This general fund goes towards things like education, which is a major factor, in my personal opinion, of the next generation, our future kids that one day we will have. Now, if we put that towards the roads and we take it out of this fund, we lose that potential income, that potential revenue that could be used towards the further education, the further enlightenment of our fellow citizens, as well as generations to come.
Representative De La Rosa, for what reason? Okay, you are recognized.
First of all, I'd like to point out that it does not add any taxes. It replaces, it changes where those taxes are allocated. Secondly, I would like to point out with education, we just passed a tax that would greatly add to our Department of Education. That's all I have to say.
Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Ballinger, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to oppose this just because on the fact that I come from a more highly populated area where there is a lot of construction on the roads. This budget will take away from all the construction we are doing for highly populated areas such as Little Rock, Northwest Arkansas, and it's giving it to other counties, which could hurt our infrastructure because there's so much traffic due to all the construction going on in our area. It would be hard to do any business getting to or from in these highly populated areas. I see the need for it in rural areas, but you're taking away the opportunity for people to do business in these highly populated areas, but also, like my fellow representative said, it's taken away from the general tax. Yes, we did pass a bill that helped the education system through taxing medical marijuana, but with this add-on in education, we might be able to help these rural areas with their education and possibly get them jobs to advance the income in those areas to build up the infrastructure. So, thank you.
Representative Boyd, for what purpose? Let's hear your motion.
To limit the debate to 2 minutes
On each side?
total.
So 1 minute on each side?
Yes, sir.
That is a proper motion. It's not debatable. The question before the House is to limit debate to 1 minute on the side. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Ayes have it. The debate is limited. Would anybody like to speak for the bill? Representative Sabin, for what purpose? You are recognized.
Yes, I would just like to say that, first of all, this bill does not take away any funds that are currently in the road system for highly populated areas. It simply adds more funds to the improvement of our infrastructure. And also, you talked about taking away the funds from the general fund, which would take away funds from education. But improving our overall infrastructure would therefore increase commerce, which would mean more funds, revenues coming into the government, into the general fund, which would then go to education.
Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Tosh, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I would like to say this bill has a good idea, supporting the roads, and I think taking away from the general tax wouldn't be such a bad idea, but I don't think the bill is well thought out enough. There's certain details that haven't been addressed, such as I don't think it was well explained how the committee would be selected. When he was talking about the construction and how much of the tax is already there, those are unanswered questions, I feel like. So I think this bill needs some work still. This is a bill that I think is a good idea, but not a bill that I would, as of now, put into law.
Would anybody like to speak for the bill? Representative Warren, you are recognized. There are just a few seconds left.
I would like to point out that this bill is greatly needed for the infrastructure of the southern half of the state. If you look at the wood on these desks, that was most likely provided by a sawmill from the southern half of the state, such as where I come from, Sparkman. There are 3 major sawmills there. One of them is the 3rd largest sawmill in the state, next to GP and Rogers Sawmill. And
that is all the time for the bill. Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Ferguson, you are recognized. That's McNair, my apologies.
I'm against this bill because you'll have to turn around, especially with the construction being, he said, from 4 days to a week. I feel as if it would be poorly constructed, as if they wouldn't tear up the roads and do it over again. And if it's a heavily populated back road, it would draw back to the community from getting to work. Thank you.
We have a few seconds left. Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Fielding, you are recognized.
I see there's a need, but I think the bill is too early in the stage. I think that there's some more details that need to work out. And also, I think that instead of taking away from the education, if you can take...
That is the time.
Okay.
The question before the House is the passage of House Bill 1003. Prepare the machine, Mr. Clerk. Has everybody voted? Cast up the ballot, Mr. Clerk. By a vote of 17 yeas and 80 nays and 0 presents, the bill has failed. Mr. Clerk, please read House Bill 1004.
House Bill 1004 to provide for current college or vocational credits for high school students by Representatives T. West.
Representative T. West, you are recognized to explain the bill.
Good morning, gentlemen. This bill was designed to be very straightforward, and what we discussed about was trying to get it to where every high school student had the opportunity of enrolling in concurrent classes where they can either take academic or vocational classes to kind of steer away from the negative connotation that jobs like plumbing or electricians aren't good careers, because that kind of those blue collar jobs are kind of like looked down upon, but they can easily make like up to $80,000 and $90,000 a year. And also, we feel as if college, it's a very time-consuming process, and that this could kind of expedite that process by making a 4-year bachelor's program turn into 3 if they're in, instead of having like senior year kind of being that blow-off year, they start taking college classes earlier in advance, and that kind of saves money and time. Yeah, so thank you.
Representative Williams, for what purpose?
Ask a question.
You are recognized.
Okay, so how would this how would the concurrent credit be like given to the students? Would there have to be like classes offered, and if so, how would you fund those classes?
Funding, well, I'm from Fayetteville High School, and what we do is you have to actually pay for your classes. Like I'm signed up for Composition 2, so it's like a $200 class, and it's through our NWAC community college. So I feel like it's your responsibility to pay for that, because nothing in life is really free.
Representative Hendren, for what purpose? We're taking questions now. Representative Walker, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
How do you plan to pay for these classes?
I just kind of answered that in my previous statement, that it's kind of your responsibility, as nothing in life is free.
Representative West has explained the bill. Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Hendren, We have recognized you.
In the bill, it says that it would like to provide each student the opportunity to get it. And so when it says provide, I believe that that means that it'll allow them to pay for it. And so I don't think that in public education we have the funding to provide each student that opportunity. I think that each school district in the state should be free to choose whether they would like to offer that. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak for the bill? Representative Ease, we have, what is it called again? Recognize you, yeah.
I would like for this bill to be passed because as of right now, I'm only taking one class next year in high school. And if these classes were passed, I would be able to get more college credit and not have to spend so much time in college when I finish high school. Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Gray, we have recognized you.
Looking at this bill, I don't really see, with all due respect, I don't see the point of this bill if the schools are going to offer college credit, but then the high school student has to pay for it. And so honestly, I just think it would be a waste of legislation. If the student can afford it, they would go ahead and take these college credits themselves. And we shouldn't make the public schools, we shouldn't force it upon the schools to make them offer these college classes. Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak for the bill? Representative Gonzalez, we have recognized you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If these classes were to be offered in high school students would be relatively guaranteed basically the first year of their college year. So if you were to go to a 2-year vocational college, if you were to take that first year in high school, you would only have to take one and instantly be in the job a year later. Whereas if if the school were to not have these classes, it would take longer for you to be in these jobs. Or it will take longer to go to school, or it would take longer to go to school, yeah.
Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Bentley, we have recognized you. We have already recognized the next speaker.
I would just like to point out that in college, different classes give you different number of hour credits. So I'd like to point out that it would vary very widely depending on which classes are offered. And also you can take 4 hours worth of classes one year and 6 hours worth of classes the next year. So what exactly identifies as 1 year of college?
Representative Hillman, for what purpose?
Because I don't believe that. Oh, I'm sorry. Motion.
Let's hear your motion.
Immediate consideration.
That's a proper motion, and it's not debatable. The question before the House is immediate consideration of House Bill 1004. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. I heard aye. Ayes have it. Ayes have it. The question before the House is passage of House Bill 1004. Prepare the machine, clerk. Has everybody voted? Has everybody voted? Cast up the ballot, Mr. Clerk. By vote of 50 yeas, 47 nays, and 1 present, the bill has failed. Representative Wilson moves that we place House Bill 1001 back on second reading for the purpose of amendment. Without objection, read amendment number 1, Mr. Clerk.
Amendment number 1 by Representative Allen.
I recognize Representative Meeks to explain what is going on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, gentlemen, what we're doing is we're getting ready to amend a bill. When a bill is first introduced, the Constitution says it has to be read 3 times. The first time basically is when it's read, is when it's filed. It's read a second time. After it is read the second time, it's assigned to a committee. If it passes the committee, it comes back, and then it's read the third time across the desk before the House takes action on it. In order for a bill to be amended, it has to be on second reading. When the bill's on the third reading, it's considered that's the final form of the bill, and it can't be amended on the third reading. So what we just did is the Speaker said, without objection, we're going to put the bill back on second reading for the purpose of amendment. If anybody objected, then the House would go into debate about whether we were going to put it back on second reading. Generally, nobody ever does that. So the bill is back on second reading now for the purpose of amendment, and here in a minute, the amendment sponsor is going to come down and talk about his amendment. Now, when he comes down and talks about his amendment, he has to focus on the amendment only. He can't talk about the merits of the bill. So if he starts talking about the merits of the bill, someone jump up and call point of order on him. When he explains the amendment, then it will go into the normal debate like we've just had. You can speak for and against the amendment. Sometimes the bill sponsor is okay with the amendment and wants the amendment to take place because it makes it a better bill. Sometimes the bill sponsor does not like the amendment and will speak against the amendment. So the bill sponsor, I don't know, that'll be up to you to decide but you will debate that amendment. If the amendment passes, then what would happen in the real world is the bill would be sent to what's called engrossing. So there would be no further action taken on it today. That amendment would be engrossed into the bill, and then it would come back tomorrow for us to take up as a whole bill back on third reading. If the amendment fails, then we would just continue business as order. You go into the bill and discuss the bill and continue normally. So with that, Mr. Representative Ladyman.
Representative Wilson, you have been recognized to explain the amendment, House Bill 1001. Amendment.
Okay, so is he doing the amendment or is he doing the amendment?
He's doing his amendment.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, Speaker. The amendment is for Bill 1001. What it would do is for these smaller schools, which is 3A and below, it will require one athletic trainer for every 50 students, every 50 student athletes in the school. And for every school that is a high population school, 4A or above, it will require one athletic trainer for every 100 student athletes.
Representative De La Rosa, for what purpose?
Ask a question.
You are recognized.
Why do the schools have a different ratio of athletes to trainers?
The reason they have different ratios is because a 3A school, such as the one I go to, we may not have 100 student athletes in a school because most of the people that play multiple sports. So we may not have 100 student athletes, so we may not be required to have even one athletic trainer.
He has explained, Representative Wilson has explained the amendment. Would anybody like to speak against the amendment? Representative Warren, we have recognized you.
In the bill, it was said that there will be one trainer for every 50 student athletes. Well, there are some schools that do not even have 50 student athletes total, such as schools like Sparkman, Taylor, Emerson, Bradley, 1A schools, even schools like Harmony Grove, which they are, although a bigger school, their football team has about 30 people.
Would anybody like to speak for the amendment? Representative Whitaker, we have recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As of right now, athletic trainers are shared at the smaller level between the schools. Usually 3 or 4 schools will share one athletic trainer. This in turn means that an athletic trainer cannot make every single event, which is a problem. And for one school, if they cannot have an athletic trainer present, this bill would help correct that, and that's it.
Would anybody like to speak against the amendment? Representative Ballinger, we have. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I disagree with the 50 athletes to one trainer. I'd set different ratios based on the different classification of the school. If we lowered it, I go to 7A school, so we'd be hiring a bunch of athletic trainers to match the lower ratio or even the 50 to 1 student athlete ratio. So if we could come up with a more proper ratio to fit different classifications, for example, lower 1A schools to have a better ratio between athletes and athletic trainers compared to a 7A school who has a whole lot more athletes. So the ratio can be changed. That's why I'm asking for you guys to consider, because the pay that you'd have to pay for these athletic trainers would be more of a burden on these higher schools that need to focus more on education for thousands of students, not just athletes. So please consider that when you're voting.
Would anybody like to speak for the amendment? Representative Ferrara, you have been recognized.
All right, so speaking back on his statement right there, he said that the money
would be more for teachers, which we need. But if you look down on the bill a little farther, it's going to be an incentive to people that are in physical therapy school or medical school, and they will use their volunteer hours to get a percentage off, or use it as like a teacher when they have to shadow to get a certain amount of hours. So it would be no cost to the education bill.
Representative Ritchie, for what purpose? Oh, well, he's left a pit hole thing. Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Donston, we have recognized you.
Thank you, Speaker. I believe that all the money should be going to things like teacher salaries. We're adding more employees, but our teachers are not getting paid enough. So why would we put money in more employees when we're not already paying our teachers enough? We need to focus on them so they can pour into the students. Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak for the amendment? Representative McElroy, we have recognized you.
To address what the former representative just said, if you look at the actual bill, you'll see that the funds would definitely not be coming from the schools. So the pay from teachers would not be diverted at all. The bill in question offers funds for the Department of Education to local college students who are studying physical therapy. It offers them payments towards their student loans.
Representative Tosh, for what purpose?
Point of order. What we're talking about right now, for the most conversation has been about the bill, not the amendment. The amendment is talking about the ratio of 1 to 50, or 1 to 50 for 4A, or no, 1 to 100 for 4A above, and 1 to 50 for 3A above, and that should be the discussion, or the topic of the discussion.
Speakers, please keep your remarks to the amendment.
Okay, I'm finished then.
Would anybody like to speak against the amendment? Representative Hodges, we have recognized you.
Thank you, Speaker. I feel like these ratios aren't justified because 4A schools are a lot different than 7A schools, and I feel like that each classification, they should have a specific amount of trainers. So like 1A schools, they would have a specific amount, 2As, 3As, 4As, 5As, 6As, 7As, and I would like you all to take that in consideration. So thank you.
Would anybody like to speak against the amendment? Representative Jett, we have recognized you.
While there is a need for athletic trainers, specifically trainers at higher levels, smaller schools like 3A, 2A, 1A, they can probably get by with just having a coach, or multiple coaches for that matter, taking athletic training in the summer times and being certified trainers. So then you don't have to divert funding from anywhere. You just have the coaches there that already know the kids, that are already close, and are already on staff.
Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Gazaway, we have recognized you. For Let's hear your motion, sir.
My motion is for immediate consideration of the amendment.
That's a proper motion and is not debatable. The question before the House is immediate consideration of Amendment number 1 to House Bill 1001. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The question for the House is passage of Amendment 1 to House Bill 1001. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The noes had it. I see more than 5 hands.
Okay, so question for the House.
Question for the House is passage of Amendment 1 to House Bill 1001. Prepare the machine, Mr. Clerk. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Cast up the ballot, Mr. Clerk. By a vote of 32 yeas, 57 nays, and 10 presents, the amendment has failed. I recognize the parliamentarian, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Men, I wanted to kind of explain what just happened here, and it goes to why we passed over House Bill 1001 at the very beginning. When you're doing amendments, it can get complicated, and during the debate, the point of order was made when the discussion went beyond the amendment itself. It was a proper point of order because the debate should have talked strictly about the amendment. And since the debate happened, the vote was taken. The first vote was taken was a voice vote. And it wasn't clear what was going on, but when we vote on amendments up here, we often just use a voice vote. The state constitution requires that the yeas and nays be recorded on the passage of bills in certain resolutions. But on amendments, that's not a requirement. So the speaker will often do voice votes on amendments. But if there's 5 hands that dispute the outcome of that vote, it will be put on the machine, which is what happened, and that's what the result was. Okay, the amendment failed. So now we're in the posture, as Mr. Meeks explained a while ago, we immediately take up the bill as originally written. So it is as if Amendment number 1 doesn't have anything to do with the bill anymore. Had it passed, it would have become part of the bill, and during a real legislative session, when a bill is amended, it goes to engrossing. And that's the process of taking the amendment and merging it with the bill and producing a new version of the bill. And that won't be voted on until it comes out of engrossing and the members can actually read the bill and know exactly what they're voting on. So I don't know if I've made anything clearer, but the bottom line is amendments can be complicated, and if we get Senate Bill number 1 over from the Senate later, we're going to take up another, it will have been amended, so we won't have to deal with the amendment over here. So thank you.
Mr. Clerk, please read House Bill 1001.
House Bill 1001, to protect the health of student athletes by requiring an athletic trainer in every public school, by Representative Allen.
Representative Allen, you are recognized to explain the bill.
How you all doing? Okay. Well, the problem at hand is not every school around the state of Arkansas have an athletic trainer. And an athletic trainer's job is to treat athletes when they're hurt, preventive maintenance from getting them hurt, and diagnose things when they are hurt. And it is dangerous to have coaches out there diagnosing, you know what I'm saying, players without athletic trainers. And it would be, we would do this bill by, okay, here we go. Nurses, it will be all volunteer work. Nurses, like it says right here in A, it says receive a credential in a program to study for athletic trainers for a similar program of study that leads the person being qualified as athletic trainer and it continues to be employed at public schools as an athletic trainer. It will be nurses or people who are in graduate school to get volunteer hours, or it would be like a debt forgiver for people like a year for a year. If you stay there for a year, then you get the debt off of you, something like that. I'm telling you guys, it is so dangerous to have your coach sit there and diagnose something for you when you can have someone professional there and it will cost no money to the state at all. It's just volunteer time.
Representative Davis, you are recognized. Oh, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
The amendment says if the funds are available, that there will be help with student loans from the Board of Education or the Department of Education. If the funds aren't available from the Department of Education, will they still be required to employ trainers? And if so, where will the money come from?
Well, I didn't type that up. It was not originally supposed to be any funds at all. It was supposed to be all volunteer from nurses and nurses who are wanted to be nurses, or people who are nurses trying to get their debt paid, like a debt forgiver. So that's what I was. Another question.
Representative Gray, for what purpose?
A question.
You are.
I was just wanting to know if there was a minimum or maximum salary that athletic trainers had to be paid, and if so, would it differentiate between each size of the school?
That's a great question, and if you read the bill, it says that no one's going to get paid. It's all volunteer.
Representative Williams, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
How important is it to have a athletic trainer on the spot when a student athlete gets injured, and why is a couple of 1A schools using the same trainer not sufficient?
May you repeat the question? I didn't hear the first part.
How important is it to have a physical trainer?
How what?
How important is it to have a physical trainer at the time of an injury, and why is a couple of 1A schools sharing one athletic trainer not sufficient?
It is extremely important for a school to have an athletic trainer. Being an athlete myself, at my school, we do not have an athletic trainer, and it costs the school more money not having one, because when a player gets hurt and the coach doesn't really know what to diagnose, then now the school has to spend money to send this player to go get an x-ray or something, or the coach diagnosed something and it's actually more than what it is. Now the school has to spend money because it's more than what it was. It's extremely important because that's a professional, and your coach isn't, no matter how many classes he takes. And you said about 1A schools. What about 1A schools? 1A schools what?
A couple 1A schools sharing the same trainer?
If that's Well, we can't talk about the amendment, but that was what the amendment was about. Y'all took it as if like 50, that was, no, it 1 to 50. So if your school had 20, that would be in that 20. And if a couple 1A schools is in that area, that trainer will be with those schools also. They will all fit in with that one trainer, or a trainer, you know what I'm saying?
Representative House, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
Would there be a trainer for each sport in case like 2 sports are going on at the same time?
Yes. It's volunteers. Yes, it should be.
Representative De La Rosa, for what purpose?
To ask a question.
You are recognized.
What about the athletic trainers who currently have jobs through the school system?
Okay.
Will they retain those jobs?
Yes, if your school wants to keep its athletic, is obligated for the school to have an athletic trainer. This is just a program. If your school wants to spend their money on the athletic trainer, then they can, as they will. But this is for the schools who don't necessarily, you know what I'm saying?
Representative Smith, for what purpose? You're recognized.
Not all schools or not all students that are going to be athletic trainers might want to participate in volunteer service, but the bill still requires that each public school that offers athletic programs shall employ a trainer. So will they be forced to hire one, and where will those additional funds come from?
No, people are going to volunteer because of their debts. In local hospitals, nurses are going to volunteer. It's volunteer where people volunteer. They're going to volunteer for it.
Representative Hendren, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
You said that people would volunteer to because they have debts. As I understand, volunteering means you don't get paid. So how am I going to pay off my debts if I'm just volunteering?
It also states in the bill 1 for 1, 1 year for 1 year of your debts. I think that's what it says in here. I think he wrote it down. He was supposed to write it down or type it down. It was supposed to say 1 for 1. But yeah, that's how it will go. 1 year for 1 year.
Representative Ballinger, for what purpose? You are recognized.
In section, I think it says 1B, it says if funds are available, the Department of Education shall provide payments toward the student loans of a person employed as an athletic trainer by public schools if the athletic trainer receives credentials in Part A, but it also says continues to be employed by the public schools. If this is volunteer work, why are they receiving funds? Because that makes them an employee at that time. And then where will that money come from? Will that come from the school board having to rearrange the budget, or will the government have to take taxes out of some other place to pay for these athletic trainers?
I believe someone over here already asked the question earlier, and we were like, that was a mistype. It will be all volunteer. Well, I'm done with questions.
Representative Allen has explained the bill. Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Gazaway, we have recognized you.
While this bill has a good concept, there are some problems with the execution of the bill, mainly just the whole funds going towards the particular volunteers' student loan debt. Where would that money come from? I don't see any funds being available, so.
Representative Nix, for what purpose? Let's hear your motion.
Debate. Limit debate.
To
2 minutes each side.
That's a proper motion. That's a proper motion, and that's a proper motion. It is not debatable. The question before the House is to limit the debate to 2 minutes on the side. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. I recognize Representative Sturch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Guys, this time won't count against you or for you. Just a quick observation. What's in this bill today before you is not exactly what was talked about in our committee yesterday. This actually does happen to us, even sometimes as authors of the bill, that we think we had put something in there or that it should have been this way, and it doesn't get translated just right. So a lot of the questions that you're asking, I think that's where a lot of the confusion was. This was my committee that I worked on yesterday, and we did talk about both a loan forgiveness program and a volunteer service credit program. So if you were working at a hospital or if you're working at higher ed institution like for college and you needed service hours or volunteer hours, you could be employed as the athletic trainer or help out with athletic training, and that would take care of your service hours. So a lot of the confusion I keep hearing about is because there was supposed to be a section in there that's not in there, but there was supposed to be a volunteer service hours and a loan forgiveness program. So I just wanted to make that clarification for you. And so.
Would anybody like to speak for the bill? Yeah. Representative Representative Fielding, we have recognized you.
I would like to say that this bill is for the trainers. It's not that if you already have a trainer, if you have already like Hot Springs, we already have a trainer on staff, we want them to stay on that staff. This is for more like the lower A schools, like 3A and under, that do not employ a athletic trainer. So we're trying to get where we're making sure protecting our health of our athletes, that we try to get that the colleges, we're going to try to go where we get them a partner up with certain different schools that are struggling to get them where we're ensuring our health of our athletes. Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak against the bill? Representative Birch, we have recognized. For what purpose?
I want to make a motion for immediate consideration.
That's a proper motion and it is not debatable. The question before the House is immediate consideration of House Bill 1001. All in favor say aye. Aye. All in favor say no. No. The ayes have it. The question before the House is the passage of House Bill 1001. Prepare the machine, Mr. Clerk. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Cast up the ballot, Mr. Clerk. By vote of 56 yeas, 34 nays, and 7 presents, the bill is passed.
Mr. Clerk, please read Senate Bill number 2.
Senate Bill 2, to study and create alternative irrigation methods to conserve water, sponsored by C. Swears.
Representative Swears, you are recognized to explain the bill.
What this bill was meant for is what a lot of people don't realize, especially with the flooding this year, is Arkansas's water deficit underground is becoming where it will be in the same shape as the state of California is if we don't do something about it now. The state of California already has laws in place that what it does is they can only pump so much out of the ground. And not only will that hurt our state's economy, because 1 in 4 jobs here in this state relate to agriculture. Agriculture is the biggest industry here in this state. What this bill is meant to do is it's to create alternate water sources. And the way it's going to do that is it's going to create a commission board, which will also partner with the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture, which will not only make the bill come back, hopefully, but it will also have conservation so that when we have children someday, they won't have to worry about the water situation here in the state of Arkansas.
Representative Swears has explained the bill. Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Whitaker, for what purpose?
Question.
You are recognized.
Where would funding come from to support the study and the development of this water irrigation?
The University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture has a lot of programs, and this could also be one of their programs. But if you'll also think of it, there's a lot of federal funding. The United States Department of Agriculture, the Natural Resource Conservation Services, and also your USDA, all of it has grants. And like the NRCS, which is your Natural Resource Conservation Services, they've started on this project long ago because they've seen the bigger picture that we're fixing to run out of water, and they're already offering grants, but it's not helping fast enough. We need to make it where everybody's aware that we have a problem with this state's water.
Representative Wardlaw, for what purpose? You're recognized.
While it is a unique concept, are the steps attainable for achievement?
Are you asking, can this be achieved?
What are the steps for achievement, basically? Yeah.
What would have to happen first is after the committee is elected, they would have to also appoint people, and that's where the Division of Agriculture can come in with their research facilities. If you've never seen them, the Division of Agriculture in this state has some of the best research facilities in the nation. We lead here in the state of Arkansas the rice research. That would be a perfect place to start for water conservation services. I spoke with some gentlemen yesterday during the meeting who said that drop irrigation is what used to be used, which if it could be fundable to the farmers, it would be an excellent program. But the only way you could see how it would react would be to have it tried.
Representative De La Rosa, for what purpose?
To ask a question.
You're recognized.
First of all, you kind of described the bill as something that would create like better infrastructure to do with water. But from what I've read, it's only about the Water Conservation Task Force itself, the creation of that, right? Okay, and so this would have, like, our say in this would have nothing to do with the actual research, right? So this is just about the delegation of responsibilities so that we can have an opportunity to get this early, right?
The bill was also supposed to include, which the more I've read, it does not, but it's also supposed to include, or it actually does say the study of it, and that's where your Water Conservation Task Force would come in, and they would help lead the studies, which would then report it back.
Okay, and so with that, how is that going to help? So this task force is there in order to provide ideas? Is that what this is? The task force is going to, from my perspective, would create ways, and with the water engineers and everybody on the task force, then they would know, they would have an insight, like there are going to be farmers on this that know the water struggles here in the state of Arkansas. And I come from a farm family, so I can tell you firsthand there are water struggles here in the state. The task force would be the one they would run the research side of it. And with that in mind, it would bring back the information that the public could use. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Gray, for what purpose?
Question.
You're recognized.
So how much capital would we need to create this organization, and then how much would we need to fund it yearly?
There's really not on the funding. The farmers itself can apply for grants through your NRCS, your USDA, your FSA offices. They can apply for the grants that would fund it on their part. The research itself would come from, like, the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture is part of your land-grant college here in this great state. That would allow for, your land-grant college is already state-funded, and they have many, many programs. Like, my dad's farm is in one of the programs they have. This could just be another program that they offer in order to try to save the state and make it better for everyone.
Representative Miller, for what purpose?
Question.
You're recognized.
Okay, so you keep using the word problems. Can you elaborate on what type of problems?
Are you talking about the water problems, or?
Yes.
Like, 5 years ago, we had a well in front of my house. It was pumping 1,300 gallons a minute, which is a lot of water. Last year when we turned it on, it was only pumping 700. The underwater aquifers are slowly depleting to the point that they're going to be nothing one day. And when that happens, we'll be in the same shape as the state of California, who is always on the news because of their water crisis. Why not do something about it now when we still have enough water that we can contribute to this and make it better so that we won't run out of water one day?
Representative Gates, for what purpose? You're recognized.
You've referred to the study numerous times. How much money would that study cost?
How much money would this program cost?
The study.
The study? I truly believe that the studies really wouldn't have to cost any money because of the fact that it could be implemented, like in Stuttgart, there's the Arkansas Rice Research Center, which leads the rice and research. I believe it could be implemented down there, which is already state funded, so you wouldn't have to move any of the funds around. And with the money they already use, all you'd have to do is just use the same money for the same purpose.
Representative Douglas, for what purpose?
Your question.
You're recognized.
So you've mentioned that states like California have this problem as well, and they create task force like this that research the same problem. So my question would be, do you really find it necessary to create our own task force when we can just look at the research and solutions that task force in other states have done and get immediately to solving the problem rather than studying things that have already been studied?
Arkansas is a very unique state, and you can't compare it to any other state. We're one of a kind. So I truly believe it needs its own task force in order to make it unique like we are.
And Representative Douglas, for what purpose? You're recognized.
So my question is, where will your allocation of money be? Like, what percentage will go to the farmers and the engineers, and what percentage will go to the actual research of, or review of agricultural irrigation methods?
I don't believe I understand your question.
Okay, so with the funding that you do receive, how much will actually go to the task force, and how much will go to research and review?
The task force would be a group of volunteers, just like you can volunteer for a lot of different communities throughout your community. There are several committees, like on Arkansas Farm Bureau, that don't have pay rates, but you're still part of the committee. There really wouldn't be any money raised. It would just be the fact of you're taking the money that's already being used and you're using it for purposes that would not only conserve the water here in the state, but would also make the state better. I would appreciate a yes vote on this. The state has a problem that a lot of people aren't knowing of, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Whitaker, you are recognized. Or for what purpose?
Motion.
We're not taking motions at this time. We want to give someone the opportunity to speak against the bill. Representative Sorvillo, you are recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. To my understanding, this bill will create a new task force. I would like to vote no on this bill today and send it back to the committee, have it rewritten so that we assign these responsibilities to an existing agency as opposed to expanding the bureaucracy. Thank you.
Mr. Whitaker, for what purpose?
To limit debate to 2 minutes.
That's a proper motion, and it is not debatable. The question before the House is to limit debate to 2 minutes on the side. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Representative Warren, you are recognized.
Okay, this would put us in the lead for basically making our own efforts towards conservation of the water. And really, I think what he was trying to say was that we can't really follow someone else's lead because it is a very, very different situation. California didn't take steps in advance to prevent it. We are trying to prevent it. And as with the farmers, the cost could be covered by agencies such as Farm Bureau, Farm Credit, who are basically insurance agencies for the farmers. They help them out in times of need. And as far as the cost for the study, Southern Arkansas University is an agricultural college mostly. So they would be glad to do a study on this. University of Arkansas would very gladly accept a study on this, and this could be one of their programs that we would not have to pay for as a state as taxpayers. We would be paying the same taxes for the same universities. Thank you.
Representative Payton, for what purpose?
Question. There's no one.
No one at the stage. No one's at the stand.
No one is at the stand. Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Representative Smith, you are recognized.
Thank you all. My dad worked for a guy that drilled wells in South Arkansas for a while, and recently they've been having to go around and lower those wells so that they can reach the water table that we have. This is a different water table than is in California. We have different crops that are grown in California. The corn and rice here, as Governor Hutchinson said yesterday, we grow 50% of the nation's rice. So we have a very different problem than California does. So we have a need to have research specific to Arkansas, and that's what this bill would do. It would give us what we need to preserve our economy, to preserve our agriculture, and preserve our land. Thank you.
Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Douglas, you are recognized.
So water conservation is a problem across the world, not just in America. Every nation faces droughts, and because of this, there have been numerous studies on how to conserve water and new irrigation methods. And because of this, I don't feel that it's necessary for us to explore something that there have already been solutions to and that we know how to fix. We just have to implement a cause to fix it. So this task force is unnecessary because we could just go straight into implementing ways to help solve the water crisis instead of creating some sort of a committee to research problems that we already have research on and have solutions to. So I would encourage you to not vote for this bill.
I need to interrupt for a moment. Is leave granted for the governor to be admitted to address the House? Please admit the governor. Governor, you are recognized.
To the Speaker and everyone in the House, thank you for this opportunity to speak before you right now. I hope you guys are just enjoying yourself. I hope you're having a good time. I hope you're actually doing stuff though. So I'm not gonna be before you long. We're already late for appointments. So, but basically what I want to say is, don't forget what got you here. You sitting in these seats now. You seeing what the actual system is like. Don't forget what got you here. Think together. Use your head and work together. Don't be separated. No matter where you're from or what you do. Be together. Let's work together as a coalition. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Representative Birch, for what purpose?
Motion to limit the debate to 2 minutes.
Representative Wardlaw, for what purpose? Let's hear your motion.
All this talk about water is making me pretty thirsty. Can I have a motion to recess?
Let's see your motion.
Motion to recess. Get some water.
We're not going to accept that at this time. Senator Hendren Representative Hendren, for what purpose?
Motion.
Let's hear your motion.
For immediate consideration.
That's a proper motion, and it is not debatable. The question before the House is immediate consideration of Senate Bill 2. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. Question before the House is passage of Senate Bill 2. Prepare the machine, Mr. Clerk. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Cast up the ballot, Mr. Clerk. By a vote of 55 yeas, 37 nays, and 6 present, the bill is passed. Mr. Clerk, please read Senate Bill number 4.
Senate Bill 4, to require standardized college entrance exams and exam testing, sponsored by S. Selhorst.
Representative Selhorst, you are recognized to explain the bill.
As high school students in Arkansas, we take one test in the 11th grade year. That is, for many students, the first and last ACT that they take. This bill proposes that we have them take another test in their 10th grade year and take a course in their 8th grade year to prepare for these tests, so they are less nervous and more prepared for the entrance exams for college.
Representative Selhorst has explained the bill. Representative Hendren, for what purpose? You are recognized.
Why do you see that it is necessary to have other opportunities to take this test when some kids don't even plan on going to college? They would rather go to a trade school or a technical school.
I feel that the option to go to college should always be open, and we should give as many opportunities for the people who do, and even the people who don't. For if their first test doesn't go well, and then their second test goes much better, so that may persuade them to go to college.
Representative Sabin, for what purpose?
Question.
You recognize.
Yeah, why is the
preparation, the class, why would that be 8th grade instead of 9th grade, closer to their high school years?
When taking it in 8th grade, if they are very adamant about doing well in this test, they can take the things that they learn within the 8th grade and then practice them throughout their 9th grade year, and even enhance the learning from the 8th grade class in their classes in the 9th grade year, and focus on what they really need to know.
Representative Bentley, for what purpose? You're recognized.
Why do you feel that it should be required for someone to have to take the test in the 8th grade when as early as the 7th grade there's already opportunities through the Duke TIP program? So if kids want to take the ACT test early, they can.
The 8th grade, is that what you said?
7th grade.
So, did you ask me if they can take it in the 8th grade? I must have misspoke. They can take it in the 10th grade and take it in the 11th grade.
Does require 8th grade students to complete 1 semester of college entrance test preparation. So why do you feel that it's required for them to take this preparation when in 7th grade they can already take the ACT if they really want to?
The Duke DIP program, as you and other programs, only are offered to a select group of students. But we want to offer this to all of the students that are interested in taking exams later down their career in school.
Representative Shepard, for what purpose?
Question.
You're recognized.
Will this test be paper or digital?
It would be the ACT, which is paper.
Representative Lowry, for what purpose?
Question.
You're recognized.
Where would we get the funds to pay for the ACT test that will be administered in the 10th grade?
We have just passed a tax to go from education, or to go to education. We could use those funds and allocate there.
But did it pass in the Senate?
That's a good question. I don't know. But that's the school board, I guess. I don't know.
Representative Fortner, for what purpose? You're recognized.
What would you have in the preparation classes for the ACT?
Well, I believe that we would focus on all the things that they need to know. Focus on the math equations that they would need to know. We would have them practice reading, because speed and pacing on the ACT is a big problem that we have. And we would try and prepare them mentally for the task that they will need to take.
Representative Sorvillo, for what purpose?
Question.
You're recognized.
The ACT as a college entrance exam is pretty complicated as far as some of the content goes. Would this class be more along the lines of general test skills, or would it be more formatted to the actual content of the ACT, considering that the math can be fairly advanced as well as, as well as the other subjects?
The majority of the math on the ACT is there's a very small portion that is calculus, and you can, without taking calculus, you can mainly do all of the math except for the calculus questions on there. But I feel that a large part of the test is knowing what types of questions they're going to ask, how to eliminate answers from those questions, and learning how to pace yourself on those questions.
Representative Davis, for what purpose?
Question.
You're recognized.
From my experience, there's a lot of redundancy forcing students to take classes they don't care about. So would you consider making the class not required but offered at every school?
I would consider it.
Representative Birch, for what purpose? You're recognized.
So it's to my knowledge that in 2A it says just an ACT, and I believe an SAT is also a college test. My question is, why is that not in the bill?
In our committee, we did talk about this, and we did not put the SAT in there, but the college preparation classes can be geared to focus to the SAT or the ACT, whichever.
Representative Selhorst has explained the bill. Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Hendren, you're recognized.
So this bill has discussed offering 8th grade preparation classes and then taking the test in 10th grade and 11th grade. We already take it in 11th grade, and throughout the 11th grade year, it is required that your class or your teachers in each, like science, math, English, they have to give tests that are preparation or that are preparing you for the ACT. And so I feel that offering a 8th grade preparation class would be a waste of time and just would be repeating itself and something that we already do in 11th grade.
Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Representative Sturch, you are recognized.
Okay. I don't see like you. 11th grade, yeah, we take the ACT, but I believe that we should take it or start preparing for it around 8th and 9th grade, like the ASVAB test. And previously, before, we had the benchmark test that we had to take every year in middle school. And it was like preparing us, and then for the kids that, like the younger generation that didn't have to take it, then they're not having any, like they take the ASVAB test, but that's just the ASVAB test. But the benchmark was like preparing us for these kind of things. That's why most of us do good on our ACT. So let's go for this bill.
Would anyone like to speak against the bill? Representative Ballinger, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm against this bill because of the lack of in-depth detail, especially about funding for this. He said the school board will pay for it, where in most cases some districts, some school boards don't have enough money to keep afloat all programs and are suffering in some. Yes, we need to take the ACT more often. It will help us. But I don't think you should require kids to take it. If they really want to be successful, there's online tests, there's classes. Some schools offer ACT prep for kids that want to do well, different methods, different styles to be successful. So forcing kids to do something that they already have an option of doing would be very harmful to them because they wouldn't want to take it seriously. And if putting money that we haven't even found a way to get into the system, that would just be a waste of it. Thank you.
Would anyone like to speak for the bill? Representative McNair, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, as we all know, we go to school, and I feel as if this is a great opportunity to be prepared in the 8th grade, because this is what you work forward to, getting out of high school and proving yourself to go to college, and you want to have a high ACT score. I took my first ACT in the 11th grade, and I did fairly well on it, but I felt as if I wasn't prepared enough in the 11th grade, and if I would have had the preparation in the 8th grade working to 11th grade, I feel like I would have done better than I have already did. This is a great bill, and I say we pass it. Thank you.
Representative Fortner, for what purpose? Let's hear your motion.
A motion to immediate consideration.
That's a proper motion, and it is not debatable. The question before the House is immediate consideration of Senate Bill 4. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The question before the House is passage of Senate Bill 4. Prepare the machine, Mr. Clerk. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Cast up the ballot, Mr. Clerk. By a vote of 39 yeas, 54 nays, and 5 present, the bill is failed.
I recognize Mr. Lemons to the stage. Oh, podium. Thing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a couple other representatives that are with us today that I did not recognize earlier. I'd like to take a minute to do that. Representative Charles Blake. Charles, that's what happens when you're late. We have with us Representative David Hillman. I think he stepped out. Okay. And also we had Representative Dan Sullivan. Dan here? Okay. We just gave you an ovation, sir. Thanks for being here. Representative Hillman. What we'd like to do now, we're waiting to see if there's any more Senate bills coming forth. I think there may be one more, and it may not be making it down here, but we kind of wanted to open it up a little bit to see if you have any questions about anything that you've experienced today. And I'm sure we have plenty of knowledgeable representatives here that would love to step forth and answer. Go ahead. Use your mic.
Is it common for these to get passed this fast? Because it seems like it's flying pretty fast, and we're limiting like the time. So is that pretty common for them to get through that fast?
Actually, you had quite a bit more dialogue today on the average bill than we have, because we vet these in the committee extensively before they get to the House. So a lot of the questions you're asking are handled in the committee. It's not uncommon for us to pass in a session of 75, 80 days, 700-800 bills? And that does not include appropriation, does it? That's separate. 1,100 to 1,200 bills with appropriations. So we go through them pretty fast. And we've had some times we've had to stay up here until late to get it done. Yes, right. We had 2,200 bills filed this past session. We passed 1,100 of them thereabouts. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So we experienced some times where stuff wasn't in the bill, but we still voted on it. So in that case, does the bill have to be redrafted and then rebrought before the people, or can it be like a verbal agreement that that stuff is in the bill?
What you would do in those situations, you kind of fill out what the rest of the body would want you to do. So a representative, if it's my bill and I feel like there's something that should be in there that's not in there and I come to present it for you, I can voluntarily pull it down and send it back to committee for purpose of amendment, or I can amend it and come back with an amendment for you to approve here on the House side. However, I have seen it done to where in order to get votes or have people who are kind of on the fence about it, in order to get their vote, what you would do is promise to have it amended on the Senate side. So say there's something in the bill that you don't like or that you wanted added in there, what you can do from this well is say, I make a pledge or a promise to you that I will add this, this, or this on the Senate side. So when the bill goes to the Senate and gets in committee, you can amend it in Senate committee with the Senate sponsor. That bill then would be voted on by the Senate, and then the amended version would come back to you and you could pass that amended version. It just kind of depends on what the time frame is. So if you're wanting it to be done real fast, you would do it that way. Senate version comes back here. Or you could do it yourself and you could amend it back to committee and have it amended in committee. So.
Next question.
Yes, sir.
Like when dealing with a bill, is it often that people propose a motion to amend, or are they so specific and thoroughly vetted that it doesn't happen?
It doesn't happen that often, but each session there's always what I guess you would label a hostile amendment that might come up. That happens on the House floor. We've had it happen a couple of times in each session, but it's very, very rare when you look at 2,200 bills. Usually by the time they get to this floor, for the most part, unless it's a real close vote, they're pretty well, all the problems are worked out. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
In the committee that was discussing the bill, but I still have questions about it. Are those usually discussed among the representatives themselves? They just go ask the person in the committee, or how is that handled?
Usually if you weren't on the committee, like say it's an education bill, but you serve on revenue and tax and you want to know something about what's in that bill, usually you would go to the sponsor of the bill, or at least someone on the education committee that heard the testimony in committee that day, and ask them, I have a question about this, this, or this. Can you explain this to me? And they'll usually go ahead and do that before it ever comes to the floor. But even I've seen in my short time here that there's still questions, like you had several questions about different bills because you weren't on that committee, and a good sponsor will try to answer as many of those questions as possible in their presentation. Now, are they going to be able to know what questions you're going to ask? Not when they get down here. So you may throw them for a curveball and they may not know, and so they may have to kind of either say, I don't know, or I'll get that answer to you, but usually the respectful thing to do is to try to get to them and ask the sponsor of the bill before it comes on the House floor for a vote. Mickey Gates is just dying to say something.
Well, a lot of times also, y'all saw some bills die because they kept talking and talking and talking. If you support it and your teammates up here promoting, you might kind of gently get them out of the well. But also to that end, there are times where the speaker leaves and doesn't want any questions, and you may vote for it if he could answer one or two questions. So you may motion, I want to speak against it, and say, well, right now I can't vote for it, but if you could answer these questions, and then when they come up to close, if they want to address those questions, then they can answer those questions at that point.
One other thing I want to mention about committees so that you'll be aware, you do have potential conflicts from time to time. This past year, I was on city, county, local, and I was also in transportation. Every member gets 2 committee appointments, and so you have 5 A committees and 5 B committees. A lot of times, you will be in one A committee, but you've got a bill that you are the sponsor that you need to address to the committee to answer questions that is going on at the same time that you're supposed to be in your other committee. So a lot of times you either have to take a leave from your committee to go present it, or you have to find a co-sponsor that will speak on your behalf. So it gets to be a little bit of a timing issue from time to time. Do we have another question? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll come to you next, sir. You know, what you're going through today about asking your questions from the House floor, that's what it would be like if we did not have the committees. So you can imagine, we're in session for 75 days. We would never go out of session if we didn't have committees. So they do definitely serve a good use. I had a question over here. Yes, sir.
For the most part, is the votes heavily one-sided most of the time on the bills, or is it usually pretty close?
Ooh, there are a range. There are some times when Mr. Meeks is gonna. If you want to address this, go ahead. Come on.
Professionals that come and testify for your bill. And here, you have to present your bill. You can't bring charts, you can't bring graphs, you can't bring presentations, you can't have experts, you can't have doctors testify for here. You got to present all yourself. It's a good point.
And also, going back to one thing I want to add about committees is when we're in committee, we have certain protocol that we follow, but also it's not near as formal as it is in here. In committees, you can bring in experts to give testimony. People from the public can come and give testimony. Whereas here, when you come to this well, you better have all your questions answered. You better be prepared because no one gets to come up here but you. Now, I'm going to play a little quiz right quick for my fellow legislators. When you come up to the well, you can have paper. Can you have this? Thank you. We're not even allowed to bring these to the well. I mean, it is, you get to bring your presentation material, and that's it. No charts, no graphs, this. Yes, sir. Representative Hodges.
Microphone. Attire.
The attire. Is anybody wearing blue jeans that's on the back row standing up? Oh. I'm talking about, Mr. Blake, do you have jeans on today? Okay, just want to make sure. Anyway, the attire in here is you are not allowed to come to the well to present a bill to speak for or against. You can't come up here if you don't have a tie. You must have a tie. And blue jeans are prohibitive, except for typically one day we'll have a blue jean day, and if you give like $20 to a charity that is selected by the members, then you're allowed to wear blue jeans that one day. But you still have to wear a tie even when you're wearing blue jeans, and you must have a jacket. Must have a jacket. Yes, sir.
How do you come up with ideas for bills?
I'm sorry, say that again. He was whispering in my ear.
How do you come up with ideas for bills?
There you go.
Can y'all hear him? They can't hear you over here. You're going to have to pick up a microphone or come down here. You're in charge.
Got me? Okay. Well, most of your ideas for your bills will come from your districts, people in your district. And you're usually related to what, something of special interest to your district, like agriculture or maybe you're a rural versus a non-rural district, those type of legislation. And that's what you'll see. Legislators, the legislation that they bring forward will kind of reflect the makeup of their districts that they come from. One other point and I'll just quickly make this point is, on the typical day, you understand that we're not just in this chamber. We usually don't get here until about 1:30 or so. So what's going to happen in the morning is we're going to have committee meetings in the mornings and sometime after we adjourn here. So you wouldn't actually be in this chamber. You'd come in, you'd do your A or your B committee, and all that goes on in the committees, and then we would come up here to the actual floor.
Another answer to that is when you campaign for office, there are going to be points that you're advertising, that you're campaigning on, saying this is what I want to go do. You'll also have constituents that say, hey, we want you to pass a law that says every fence in Arkansas has to be blue or brown, and we want you to sponsor that. And you're going to look at them and say, you're crazy, I'm not going to do that. You're going to have people that campaign for you, that donate money. Some of those people want you to sponsor legislation that you can agree with or not agree with. So those are the way most, I think, legislators come up with it. You have farm bureaus. Those of you in ag areas, the farm bureau is very active. They come up with legislation. There's times that you pass a bill one session and 2 years later you find out things in it that really unintended consequences. You got to go fix your own bill.
I'll just kind of piggyback on that also. Sometimes, the governor has his agenda. The governor can't file or pass bills, so sometimes the governor or state agencies will come to you with issues, and they have to get a lawmaker to sponsor a bill, because without one of us, even the governor can't get a law passed. The other thing that we find is that as lawmakers, we each have to get an area that we specialize in, because it's impossible for you to know everything. So for example, I specialize in the technology and budget and energy, and those are the things that interest me. So a lot of times I will see issues in those areas and will sponsor legislations based on that. Whereas, Representative Gates may be, I don't know which committees you're on. Okay. So he may be an expert in the education field, so he may sponsor legislation on education, and because I might not be an education guy, if I see an education bill, I trust him because he and I vote the same, we have the same beliefs. I might go to him and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or if there's a bill on the insurance industry, I don't know anything about the insurance industry, so I'm going to find somebody who I trust that knows a lot about the insurance industry and get their opinion, which way they feel on a certain bill. So a lot of times we have to develop trust with each other in order to get the state's business done, because we can't all be experts in all areas of state government.
Good. Okay. Stephen, don't leave. I want you to conclude us today the way you do every time. So we got one more question though. Representative McGee, you're recognized.
Sorry. Okay, so y'all said y'all meet. So y'all said y'all meet in this chamber of 72 days or so. Do y'all meet in y'all's committees every single time? And how many bills do y'all create in y'all's committees on average?
Can you repeat the first part of your question?
So y'all said that y'all meet in the chamber about 72 days or so.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all meet with those committees every single day that y'all meet? And how many bills on average do y'all think y'all create
for each committee? I'll try to do my best. It's a complicated answer, okay? But for those 80 days or so, we have committees in the morning and then session in the afternoon, but we alternate each day. So we have, like he said, A committees and B committees. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, I'll have state agencies and governmental affairs. On Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, I'll have education committee, and then every day I'll have session. And in the House, we have a couple of rules that deal with the calendar. So a bill has to be on the calendar for 2 days until we vote on it. So say on Monday, we have a bill in education or state agencies that gets passed, it won't be until 2 days after that that it actually comes to the floor. So it kind of, to answer the other part of your question, it kind of depends on the committee itself, how many bills that committee is assigned. Education this year was my first year to serve on education, and we had twice as many bills as the transportation committee that I just come off of had, just because of, the funds that go to it, the different programs that are a part of it, so not every committee, there's not an average, but basically you could say that education may have 200 bills that are filed that pertain to it, whereas transportation may only have 100 bills that pertain to it. Depends on the committee itself. And so, all right.
Before I turn it over to Representative Stephen Meeks to adjourn us, I want to just say a few words. First, thank you for taking part in this exercise. I hope you learned something. I hope it is something that you can build on. I'm quite confident. Representative Hillman, we're fixing to take a picture. If you can you wait just a minute? Thank you, sir. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I hope you have learned something. One thing you'll find out about this body down here, we're 100 different people. We're 100 different people that have real lives back home. Well, when we come up here, and we're all from different backgrounds, different races, different creeds, different everything, different religious views, when we walk in this house, it's amazing the camaraderie that you develop. You might argue against your seatmate on a bill at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and get very heated, except for Mr. Beck. And then later that evening, you'll go to dinner together. So, I mean, I'm so glad that we bring those different views in here so that we can come up with a plan for the state of Arkansas that is good for everyone. But thank you for being here. Now, every session or every meeting that we have here in the House, it is concluded by the senior member doing what Mr. Meeks is fixing to do. So, Mr. Meeks, would you please adjourn us?
Thank you, sir. It's been an honor to be with you here, gentlemen, here today. And with that, Mr. Speaker, after the announcements, reading of the bills, transferring of the bills, placing the calendars on the desk, members amending their own bills with their own amendments, members withdrawing their own bills, finalizing resolutions, reading communications, any remaining committee reports, I move that we adjourn for lunch.
Proper motion, not debatable. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried. House is adjourned.